Ladies, let's get real for a second. We all know that dating is tricky. You're navigating emotions, chemistry, and figuring out what each person wants in the relationship. But here's the thing, sometimes, without even realizing it, we can say things that completely turn a guy off. You might think it's harmless, but trust me, what you say can make or break the connection. Now, I'm not talking about the obvious stuff like being rude or disrespectful. I'm talking about subtle comments, things that seem like no big deal but can seriously throw off the vibe. These four things that you might say to the guy you're dating can make him pull away fast. Ready for the truth? Let's dive in. One of the most subtle but powerful ways to unintentionally turn a guy off is by saying, "Why are you so quiet?" It might seem innocent enough, like you're just trying to engage in conversation or understand him better, but this question often comes across as a critique and it can feel like pressure. Here's why. First, men don't always talk just for the sake of talking. A lot of times they may just be deep in thought processing something or even simply enjoying the moment in silence. If you press him by asking why he's quiet, you're unintentionally suggesting that his silence is somehow wrong or that there's something he should be doing differently. It shifts the focus from a natural, comfortable moment to a sense of needing to justify himself. This can be especially jarring if he's not someone who talks excessively in the first place. It can make him feel like he has to fill the space with words to avoid making you uncomfortable, and that's not a good feeling to bring into a relationship. When you ask, "Why are you so quiet?" you might be doing so with the best intentions, trying to spark conversation or figure out what's going on in his head. But it can inadvertently make him think that he's being interrogated. For men, being asked this question can create a sense of pressure, like they have to perform in a certain way to meet your expectations. Instead of letting the moment unfold naturally, this question can make him feel self-conscious or like he's under a microscope. Silence, when shared comfortably, can actually be a beautiful part of a relationship. It's not always a bad sign, but when this question comes up, it can immediately shift the dynamic, making both people feel awkward. This question can lead to insecurity. If a guy already feels uncertain about how things are going or whether he's making a good impression, your question can compound those feelings. He might wonder, is my quietness bothering her? Is something wrong? This type of doubt can be damaging, especially early on in a relationship when both people are still trying to understand each other's communication styles and personalities. Instead of creating an opening for him to feel at ease and confident, you might unintentionally put him on the defensive. It's also worth considering that his quietness may have nothing to do with you at all. He could be tired, distracted, or just naturally more introspective. Sometimes the best thing you can do when a guy is quiet is to let him be. By allowing him the space to express himself when he's ready, you're showing that you respect his emotional space, which builds trust and comfort. You're also creating a space where he doesn't feel pressure to explain his quietness or perform in a way that isn't natural to him. Instead of pointing out his silence, try focusing on the moments when he does speak and show genuine interest in what he has to say. Asking open-ended questions that invite him to share what's on his mind will make him feel more comfortable and respected. If he doesn't immediately open up, that's okay. Sometimes people need time to process or simply enjoy the quiet moments without feeling like they have to constantly be speaking. When you say, "I just need to know you want me," it might seem like an innocent request, but it can actually be a major turn off. While it's natural to want reassurance and to feel desire in a relationship, putting pressure on someone to constantly prove their attraction or affection can backfire. This kind of statement often stems from insecurity, and when you express it, it can create an uncomfortable dynamic between you and the person you're dating. The problem with saying this is that it shifts the relationship dynamic from one of mutual desire and connection to one of validation. Instead of enjoying the natural flow of the relationship, you're putting the burden on him to constantly reassure you of his feelings. It makes him feel like he has to prove his desire for you, which is not only emotionally draining, but also diminishes the natural ebb and flow that should be present in the early stages of dating. Attraction and affection should be felt and demonstrated naturally, not under the pressure of constant questioning or reassurance. When you express that you need to know that he wants you, you're essentially asking him to meet an emotional need that you should be able to fulfill within yourself. A healthy relationship is built on two people who are confident in who they are and comfortable with their own worth. Relying on someone else to constantly reassure you of their attraction to you can create a sense of insecurity that's not healthy for either partner. It's important to remember that if a person truly desires you, you will feel that through their actions, through the time they spend with you, the way they make you feel when you're together, and the way they prioritize your happiness. Constantly needing to hear that someone wants you can also put a strain on the relationship. If you're always asking for validation, it can make the other person feel like they're never doing enough to satisfy you. It may even cause them to question their own feelings or begin to feel resentful over the pressure you're placing on them. Instead of creating an open, healthy conversation about how you feel, you're putting the relationship in a position where it's all about reassurance and not about building a deeper emotional connection. Moreover, when you constantly seek confirmation of someone's attraction, it can lead to a sense of desperation. Men in particular can feel overwhelmed by this kind of emotional pressure, especially if they are unsure about the relationship or still in the process of figuring out their own feelings. Feeling like you need to hear it repeatedly may make him feel like he can't be authentic with you, as though he is constantly walking on eggshells, trying to fulfill an emotional need that's being projected onto him. Confidence in yourself is key to avoiding these kinds of dynamics. Rather than asking for constant reassurance, focus on nurturing your own self-worth and being secure in your own value. If a man is truly into you, he will make sure you feel desired in ways that go beyond words through his actions, his attention, and his care for you. If you place the responsibility of your emotional security solely on him, it creates an imbalance. And that imbalance doesn't lead to a healthy relationship, it leads to an unhealthy dependency. By showing up in the relationship as a confident, secure individual, you allow the relationship to grow naturally and authentically without the need for constant validation. When you say, I don't know why I'm still single, it may seem like a harmless comment or a way to express frustration, but this can be a significant turnoff in the dating world. While it's perfectly natural to want to understand why you haven't found the right person, putting this kind of statement out there can inadvertently convey insecurity or desperation, both of which are not attractive traits in a potential partner. First, let's break down the issue with saying, I don't know why I'm still single. For one, it suggests that there's something wrong with you or that you haven't been able to figure out why no one has committed to you yet. This type of thinking often stems from feelings of self-doubt or even self-blame, which isn't something you want to communicate to someone you're dating. It can make you appear uncertain about your own value, which can be unsettling for the person you're with. No one wants to feel like they're dating someone who is constantly questioning their worth or seeking external validation for something as fundamental as being worthy of love and connection. When you express this kind of sentiment, it can make the other person feel uncomfortable. It places an emotional burden on them to try to provide answers or reassurance, even if they don't know the right way to address it. They may start to feel like they're expected to validate you or offer an explanation for why you haven't found a partner yet, which is an unfair responsibility to place on someone who's still getting to know you. The goal of dating is to build a genuine connection, not to dig into past insecurities and frustrations. The truth is, saying you don't know why you're still single may also make you seem as if you're seeking pity or sympathy. It can come across as fishing for compliments or reassurance that you're good enough. While it's natural to want to hear that you're desirable and worthy of love, constantly seeking validation from a date can make it feel like you're emotionally dependent on their affirmation. This is a dynamic that most people want to avoid when they're in the early stages of dating. It's important to remember that while seeking reassurance occasionally is fine, constantly needing it can create a sense of unease or pressure that isn't conducive to developing a healthy connection. Instead of focusing on why you're still single or what might be wrong with you, it's far more attractive to embrace a mindset. Acknowledge that being single is not a reflection of your worth, but simply a season of life you're currently experiencing. Everyone has their own timeline, and that's okay. Instead of dwelling on the question of why you're still single, shift the focus to living your life fully and embracing the opportunities that come your way. Confidence in your own worth is one of the most magnetic qualities you can exude. When you're comfortable with yourself and don't let the idea of being single define your value, you'll naturally attract the right people into your life. So rather than asking, why am I still single? Embrace the idea that your worth is not dependent on your relationship status and that The right person will come when the time is right. Saying, I hope you're not like the other guys can be an innocent enough statement, but it can be a huge turnoff. When you say this, even though you might be trying to express trust or your desire for something different, you're unintentionally setting up an expectation that can feel more like a challenge than a compliment. This kind of remark can create unnecessary pressure on him to prove that he's not like everyone else, which might not be the healthiest way to start or progress in a relationship. At its core, this statement implies that you've had negative experiences with others in the past, and that's understandable. We all bring our baggage into relationships, and sometimes it's difficult to shake off past disappointments. However, when you say this, it can feel like you're putting a label on the person you're dating before even giving them a chance to show you who they truly are. You're essentially comparing him to past men, whether you realize it or not, and setting a tone of skepticism right from the beginning. It can be disheartening for him to feel like he has to fight against the mistakes of others rather than simply being accepted for who he is. It also suggests that you have a preconceived notion of how men are supposed to behave, which can inadvertently place him in a box. He might feel like he's already being judged based on the actions or behavior of people he has nothing to do with. This creates a disconnect because you're not allowing him the freedom to be his authentic self. He might feel like he's being set up for failure, as if he's walking into a situation where he's already fighting an uphill battle to prove he's different. It creates unnecessary pressure and can take away from the opportunity to truly get to know him as an individual. There's also an underlying sense of mistrust that comes with saying this. Even if you're coming from a place of wanting reassurance, it can come across as a lack of faith in him. Trust is a foundational element of any relationship. And when you say something like this, it can make him feel like he's being asked to jump through hoops to earn that trust, hoops that may not even be his responsibility. It may make him wonder if no matter what he does, he'll always be compared to someone else and never be fully accepted for who he is. It can create a wall between you two, preventing the natural flow of connection and trust that is needed to build something strong and healthy. Instead of approaching the relationship with a sense of skepticism or bringing up past experiences as a way to gauge his behavior, it's much healthier to approach him with a clean slate. Give him the chance to show you who he is without the burden of comparison. By doing so, you're allowing the relationship to develop in its own organic way based on the unique chemistry and connection you share. If you're honest with yourself and take the time to really assess the person in front of you, you'll find that you're much more likely to build a trusting, meaningful relationship without the lingering shadows of past experiences. When you say, "Do you love me?" you may think you're just seeking reassurance or trying to gauge his feelings, but this question can actually create unnecessary pressure in the relationship. It places a burden on him to affirm his emotions, which can make him feel cornered or uncomfortable, especially if the relationship is still in its early stages. Love in any form should develop naturally over time, and pushing someone to declare it before they are ready can create tension instead of fostering the connection you're hoping for. For one, the question, "Do you love me?" can shift the dynamic of your relationship. Instead of continuing to enjoy the time you're spending together, it forces the focus onto an expectation that may not yet be fulfilled. While you might be feeling deep emotions or starting to recognize the potential for love, asking for an answer too soon can create a situation where he feels obligated to respond in a way that's expected, not genuine. This is especially true if he hasn't fully processed his own feelings yet or isn't ready to articulate them in the way you want. Relationships develop at different paces for different people. Some individuals may take longer to fall in love, and that's perfectly fine. Forcing the issue by asking, "Do you love me?" can make the other person feel like they need to give you an answer simply to avoid disappointing you. However, this doesn't give them the freedom to express their feelings in a healthy, organic way. It creates an environment where their response may not be authentic, which can lead to confusion or even resentment down the road. You may receive the words you're seeking, but they may not hold the same weight because they were said under pressure. Asking this question too early can reveal a level of insecurity that can push the person away. It shows that you might be placing your emotional well-being in his hands rather than maintaining your own sense of confidence and stability. Constantly seeking confirmation that he loves you, especially if he's not ready to express it, can indicate that you're relying on external validation to feel secure in the relationship. This creates an unbalanced dynamic where one person feels responsible for the emotional stability of the other. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and individual self-assurance, not a constant need for validation or reassurance. Rather than asking if he loves you, it's more effective to focus on the actions that demonstrate love. Look for the ways he shows his care, consideration, and commitment through his actions rather than waiting for a verbal confirmation. Love is not just about saying the right words at the right time. It's about how two people support each other, make sacrifices, and communicate with empathy. The presence of love will naturally reveal itself through these behaviors over time without the need for pressure or forced conversations. By not rushing to ask about love, you give the relationship space to grow naturally. It allows both individuals to truly evaluate their feelings at their own pace. When love does develop, it will feel more genuine, authentic. It hasn't been rushed or manipulated into existence. Let the relationship unfold without needing to define it prematurely. Trust that if the love is there, it will manifest in time. And when the moment is right, it will be expressed without any pressure or doubt. When you say, "Where is this going?" it can often send the wrong message. While it's understandable to want clarity about the direction of a relationship, asking this question can unintentionally pressure the other person and create unnecessary anxiety. This question may seem harmless, but it can make him feel like he's being rushed to make decisions or provide answers before he's ready. Relationships take time to evolve, and asking about the future too soon can disrupt the natural flow of getting to know each other. The problem with this question is that it often comes from a place of insecurity or a need for certainty. When you're unsure about where things are heading, you may feel compelled to ask for reassurance. However, this is not only unfair to him, but it also places the emotional responsibility on him to define the future of the relationship before it's truly developed. A relationship is a shared experience between two people, and it takes time to figure out whether or not there is a long-term potential. Pressuring someone for answers about the future when they might still be figuring out their own feelings can create tension and make the other person feel like they're being held to an expectation they're not ready for. Constantly asking, "Where is this going?" can create an atmosphere of uncertainty and doubt. It shifts the focus of the relationship from enjoying the present moment and building a connection to anxiously trying to map out what's coming next, instead of focusing on enjoying the time you spend together and learning more about each other. The relationship might become centered around defining an outcome that may not be necessary or productive at this stage. Not everything has to be planned or figured out immediately. Relationships develop at their own pace, and sometimes it's best to let them unfold naturally without the pressure of defining every step along the way. There's also the risk that asking this question can make the other person feel like they have to give you an answer that satisfies your need for certainty. If he's not as clear on where things are going yet, he might feel cornered into saying something that isn't fully aligned with his feelings. He may feel forced to either give you a response that feels rushed or, on the other hand, avoid answering altogether to prevent making a commitment he's not ready for. This creates a situation where he's potentially saying something out of obligation rather than because he genuinely believes it. This not only damages trust but also hinders the organic development of the relationship. Instead of asking, "Where is this going?" it's more effective to let things unfold at a natural pace and focus on enjoying the present. Allow the relationship to develop and be open to where it leads without forcing a specific outcome. Trust the process and let both of you evaluate your connection over time. If the relationship is meant to evolve into something more serious, the signs will be clear through his actions, his level of commitment, and the way he prioritizes you. Rather than seeking answers right away, focus on building a stronger connection and allowing the future to reveal itself as the relationship grows. When you say, "I need you to change," it might seem like a small request or a way to express what you think could improve in the relationship, but it can be a major turnoff. Change, especially when it's asked of someone you're dating, carries a heavy weight. It can feel like criticism, even if it's not meant that way. People don't enter relationships to be judged or molded into someone else's ideal. They enter them to be accepted for who they truly are. And when you ask for change, it sends a message that who he is right now isn't good enough, which can be deeply hurtful and discouraging. The problem with asking someone to change is that it implies that they need to improve in order to meet your standards. While it's natural to have preferences or desires for certain qualities in a partner, asking someone to fundamentally change who they are can be damaging to the relationship. Change should come naturally and be driven by personal growth and the desire to evolve as a person. When you pressure someone to change, you're asking them to become someone they might not want to be, or worse, someone they feel they need to be to keep you around. This can lead to resentment and a sense of loss of self, which ultimately affects the connection you share. People don't thrive in relationships where they constantly feel like they have to meet someone else's expectations or constantly adjust themselves to fit a mold. If you're asking him to change, it can make him feel like he's walking on eggshells, unsure of which parts of himself are acceptable and which aren't. Over time, this can lead to frustration, as he may start to feel like no matter what he does, it will never be enough. In the long run, this undermines the sense of security and trust that is necessary for a healthy relationship. This type of request can create an imbalance in the relationship. Instead of both partners working together to improve and grow, it sets up a dynamic where one person feels like they have to fix or adjust the other. This can quickly turn into a power struggle, with one person feeling like they're in a constant state of self-improvement while the other is waiting for perfection. This dynamic can be exhausting and discouraging for both parties. It's important to recognize that no one is perfect, and relationships are about learning to navigate differences and find ways to accept and appreciate each other's quirks. Rather than asking someone to change, it's far more beneficial to focus on understanding their perspective and communicating your needs in a way that encourages growth together. If there are aspects of the relationship that don't align with what you want, express those concerns without framing them as demands for change. Instead, invite dialogue and see how both of you can compromise or work together to address any issues that arise. The foundation of a strong relationship is acceptance. If you can't accept your partner for who they are, then it might not be the right relationship. You shouldn't feel like you need to change someone to make them fit your vision of what you want in a partner. The best relationships are built on mutual respect, understanding, and the ability to grow together without losing sight of each other's individuality. When you say, I always get hurt, you may think you're being open or vulnerable, sharing past experiences to express your fears and emotional baggage. However, this statement can unintentionally create a negative and self-fulfilling prophecy in the relationship. By constantly voicing that you always get hurt, you're setting up a narrative that can influence both your own mindset and how the other person views the relationship. Rather than creating an atmosphere of understanding and compassion, it can breed insecurity and make him feel like he has to walk on eggshells to avoid causing you emotional pain. For one, repeating the idea that you always get hurt can prevent you from fully opening up to the possibility of a healthy, positive relationship. This type of statement can make it difficult to trust that things can be different, that this relationship can be a safe space where your emotional well-being is nurtured. Instead of approaching your partner with a sense of optimism, you may find yourself preemptively guarding your heart, expecting things to go wrong, and thus limiting the growth of the connection between you two. It can create an emotional barrier that doesn't allow the relationship to develop naturally or flourish. Additionally, constantly saying you always get hurt can make the other person feel like they are already at fault or are being held responsible for something that hasn't even happened yet. When someone hears this kind of statement, they may feel an immense amount of pressure to protect you from being hurt, even in situations where it might not be warranted. This can be emotionally exhausting for them because they may start to feel like they need to tiptoe around every issue or concern, even if the situation doesn't require such extreme caution. This dynamic can lead to frustration on both sides, on your side for feeling like your feelings are being dismissed or overprotected, and on their side for feeling like they have to constantly prove they won't cause you harm, even when they are just trying to be themselves. This mindset can create a kind of victim mentality that affects how you view your own role in relationships. Constantly framing yourself as someone who gets hurt can lead to a situation where you are waiting for the next emotional wound, expecting the worst rather than allowing yourself to experience the present moment in an authentic way. This type of mentality can limit your ability to enjoy the connection that is unfolding and prevent you from fully trusting your partner. It may even cause you to miss out on the real potential of the relationship because you're so focused on protecting yourself from imagined hurts. The key to breaking free from this pattern is learning to approach relationships with a sense of hope and trust. It's important to acknowledge the pain you've experienced in the past, but it's equally important to recognize that not all relationships are destined to follow the same pattern. Trust that not every person will hurt you in the same way, and give yourself permission to experience joy and connection without constantly anticipating harm. In a healthy relationship, both partners should feel safe, understood, and supported, not burdened by the weight of past wounds that haven't yet been healed. By letting go of the idea that you always get hurt, you open yourself up to the possibility of a relationship that is free from that constant fear, allowing it to develop into something deeper and more fulfilling. When you say you should know what I need, it can be a significant turnoff. While the intention behind this statement is often to communicate a desire for your partner to be more intuitive or attentive to your needs, it can unintentionally create tension and misunderstandings. The reality is that no one is a mind reader, and placing the expectation that someone should automatically know what you need without being told can lead to frustration on both sides. Communication is the foundation of any successful relationship, and expecting your partner to instinctively know your needs without any guidance only sets both of you up for disappointment. For one, this statement assumes that your partner is aware of your inner thoughts and desires without you expressing them. It's easy to assume that someone should just know what you need based on past experiences or assumptions, but the truth is everyone is different, and what one person needs or expects in a relationship might be entirely different from what the other person understands. Instead of being open and vulnerable about what you need, you're putting your partner in a position where they may feel inadequate for not meeting an unspoken expectation. It can lead to feelings of frustration or confusion when they realize they've done something wrong without understanding what that something is. This can create unnecessary tension that could have easily been avoided with clear, honest communication. When you expect your partner to just know, it can create an imbalance in the relationship. Relationships are a two-way street, and both people need to actively engage in expressing their desires and boundaries. If you're not communicating your needs and are instead waiting for your partner to pick up on them, it can lead to a sense of emotional neglect or disappointment when those needs aren't met. While it might feel easier or more convenient to think that someone should simply understand you, the reality is that relationships require effort from both sides, and that includes articulating what you want and need from the relationship. This expectation also places a significant amount of pressure on your partner. They may feel like they are constantly failing if they don't meet your unspoken needs, even though they have no clear idea of what those needs are. This can create a situation where your partner feels like they're walking on eggshells, uncertain of how to make you happy or what to do to avoid disappointing you. It can make the relationship feel emotionally draining for both individuals, as one person is left feeling unheard or unappreciated while the other feels overwhelmed by the task of trying to meet needs they don't fully understand. Instead of relying on the assumption that your partner should know what you need, it's much more effective to express your desires and expectations directly. Be open about what makes you feel loved, respected, and cared for. Whether it's simple acts of kindness, quality time, or words of affirmation, communicating your needs allows your partner to meet them in a way that feels authentic and fulfilling for both of you. It also gives them the opportunity to share their own needs and desires, creating a deeper sense of connection and understanding. In a healthy relationship, both individuals should feel empowered to communicate openly without fear of being misunderstood or dismissed. By clearly articulating your needs, you allow your partner the opportunity to step into the relationship with an understanding of how to support and care for you. It creates an environment of mutual respect where both partners can give and receive love in ways that are fulfilling and meaningful. When you say, I don't need anyone, it may seem like a statement of independence or strength, but it can have the opposite effect. While it's important to maintain a sense of autonomy and not rely on someone else for your happiness, constantly declaring that you don't need anyone can make the other person feel unnecessary or even unwanted. Relationships thrive on mutual support and connection, and expressing that you don't need anyone can inadvertently shut down the possibility of developing a deep, meaningful bond. It creates an emotional distance, even if that's not the intention behind the statement. For one, when you say you don't need anyone, it can come across as a defense mechanism. It's understandable that you want to protect yourself from potential hurt or disappointment, but putting up a wall of independence can signal to the other person that you're not open to receiving love or care. While it's healthy to have your own life, passions, and goals, relationships require vulnerability and the willingness to lean on each other when necessary. Declaring that you don't need anyone can send a message that you're not open to those kinds of connections, making it harder for the relationship to grow into something more meaningful. This statement can create a sense of isolation, even if you don't mean for it to. By saying that you don't need anyone, you're communicating that your happiness and fulfillment don't depend on anyone else, which might make the other person feel like they don't matter. In a relationship, both partners should feel valued and important. If one person is constantly reinforcing the idea that they don't need the other, it can leave the other person questioning their role in the relationship. They might start to feel like they're not needed, or even that their presence is not as important as they'd like it to be. This can breed feelings of insecurity, as the foundation of any strong relationship is the understanding that both people rely on each other for emotional support and companionship. Another issue with saying, I don't need anyone, is that it can create an imbalance in the relationship. It can make it seem like one person is self-sufficient while the other is expected to do all the emotional labor. Relationships are a partnership where both individuals contribute to each other's well-being. If one person is constantly projecting the idea that they don't need support or help, it can lead to a situation where the other person feels like they're always giving without receiving. This can create resentment over time, because a healthy relationship is about balance, where both partners give and take in a way that fosters connection, rather than one person being emotionally unavailable or self-sufficient to the point of detachment. The truth is, we all need each other, even if it's in different ways. We need emotional support, companionship, love, and care. And there's no shame in acknowledging that. Acknowledging that you need someone doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Relationships are built on the understanding that we are not islands, but people who connect and grow with others. It's about creating a partnership where both people can rely on each other and share in the joys and challenges of life. By recognizing that you do, in fact, need others, not just for emotional fulfillment, but for shared experiences and growth, you open the door for a much deeper, more rewarding relationship. It's important to remember that needing someone is not the same as being dependent on them. There's a significant difference between healthy interdependence and unhealthy dependence. When you recognize that you need someone, it's not about being incapable of standing on your own. It's about being open to the idea that sharing your life with someone else can enhance your experiences, bring joy, and offer comfort. So there you have it, the 4 phrases that might seem harmless but can totally turn a guy off. If you want to build a strong, healthy connection, remember that confidence, understanding, and genuine curiosity about who he is, not what he is, can prove to you are the keys to keeping the spark alive. The more you can focus on yourself and your own worth, the more you'll naturally attract the kind of guy who is ready to invest in you and the relationship.